Hey, and welcome to UYWI's Why Are Youth Leaving the Church Youth Panel. My name is Susie Gomez, and I am your host. Did you know that 1.2 million young people are leaving the church every year? That means one young person leaves the church every 26 seconds. UYWI and our leaders are in pursuit of the million, but we need real solutions to real problems. Youth raised in Christian homes will disaffiliate from Christianity, which means the overall Christian percentage of the population will drop to 59% from today's 73%. Youth today want answers to the complex issues in our world. They see the direct correlation in their everyday lives to issues such as the pandemic, racism, suicide, divorce, climate change, criminal justice reform, education, abortion, healthcare, housing shortage, and immigration. They are more racially and ethnically diverse than any previous generation, and they are on track to be the most well-educated generation yet. This generation is looking for leaders who can speak to their world with wisdom and an open mind. More importantly, they want to know how to integrate their culture and their faith and how to address the issues in their world, theologically as well as ideologically. We need leaders now more than ever who can hold that tension and lead in the nuances of our current cultural climate. But enough of me talking. We want to hear straight from the youth. All right, well, first of all, welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this panel. We want you guys to know that we value your voices so much. Your voices are essential to this conversation. We want to learn about the current state of our church, and we need you to help give us wisdom, especially as we try to figure out how to carve a way forward. So I want to give you this statistic. This will set the tone for what we're going to talk about. According to the Pine Tops Foundation, it is estimated that 1.2 million youth are leaving the church every year. By a show of hands, how many of you here at some point identified yourself as a Christian? Now, if you no longer identify as a Christian, I want you to put your hand down. So if no, I want to hear from you. Why not?
One reason being how there are real-life situations in my life that affect me from attending church. An example could be moving to college, and I had to focus on my career in my life, as some people can't stay to one thing forever. In other cases, I kind of lost connection with the people in church.
I identify as queer. So I think for me, my experience is a little unique, but not new. So I was also on the worship team and stuff. And so once I started kind of exploring on my own and realizing that I identified as queer, and I had made really close relationships with the people in my church. They had seen me go through really hard times, as most people in the church do, because you're vulnerable with them. But then once I started realizing, I was gay and stuff, I saw the kind of shift, and I was like, wait, what? Like, how, like, this is like, I'm happy, like, in my relationships and stuff. And you want that support, but there's also like the Bible, and there's also the verse, and there was hard, like, there was real tangible evidence, like, reasons for me to be leaving the church. Like, there was a book that I had found true, like, since birth. I was raised in the church, and so once I found who I was, I realized that there wasn't a place for me in the church in the way I wanted to be. I couldn't lead or be a pastor like I had wanted. Like, that was done once to me in my world. And then in college, I took Chicana studies and kind of learned about the damage that the church had done to Black and Brown communities historically. And I was really hurt that I was learning it in a college setting as opposed to from my church. Like, I was hurt that I felt lied to, kind of, because that is part of the history of the church. And I mean, like, there are reparations, I guess, at least for the church that I attended. I knew that they were doing community outreach. They were being proactive. But I can't I'd say the same for other churches that I had attended. They weren't in the community. They weren't giving reparations to the space that they occupied.
I stayed in the faith, but I didn't stay at church. You go there because you're told to, and then you realize that you don't really want to be here. Like, I believe in the Bible. I believe in what it says. I just don't really believe in the people in leadership at most churches. It doesn't sit right with me to see like a pastor driving away in a Bentley.
I don't go to church, but I still have like I guess you would call it a church family. Um, they're just so welcoming and accepting. And like if it weren't for them, I probably wouldn't be identifying as Christian right now.
I think that the church needs to realize that like it wasn't a white man. Like they're just like there's fundamental core things that I think like surround the idea of God that just aren't really necessarily true. And like God didn't have a gender per se. And so I think I don't know, like it's still something I'm grasping and trying to like figure out.
Like being a Christian is getting tied to this label, and it's not always seen for what it is, because what some people view a Christian as is not what some people actually like would consider themselves to be, who call themselves Christians. And I think there are people who walk the lines of someone that's similar to a Christian, but wouldn't consider themselves to be a Christian, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I think both things, God and being a Christian, is something that people put in boxes or try to put them in boxes that they don't really belong in.
For me, I feel like a Christian is someone who devotes themselves to God. And I feel like God can honestly be whatever you want him to be. Like he can be your friend. He can be like someone who watches over you. Like it can be whatever.
How do you think the church in America views your generation? And then how do you view the church?
I think we're stigmatized, stereotype, just looked at as ignorant, don't want to listen, young people are this, young people are that. It's most definitely, I feel like it's a bridge that we have to build in between the generations of young people and more elderly people, because in churches, the population is usually older, and there's a generational gap in between that. But that's only because our life experiences are different, right? And personally, the way I view the church, honestly, it's the flip side on that. I see a bunch of hypocrites that go in church. So that's why I don't mess around with the church. You feel me? Like there's some mistrust within that. I view some people as like poverty pimps, honestly, if I'm being real, just making money off of other people's lifestyles pretty much and using it for their own self-interest, but not having it takes a village mindset. So, and I look at it as just like an economical machine, it's just another business. And I feel like the love of God, the joy of God, the power of that should not be used for monetary gain. That's what I personally feel. Money is not everything. True happiness is rooted in love and purpose, passion, and peace. And I don't see that when I look at the church. So, I just think we all could do better.
I feel like the church views the generation as like, yeah, like we're just kind of like we want to go away from the church. Like we want to leave this community that we spent our life building, and that's not it. If it was up to us, it's a lot easier to be in the church. It's nice to have that community, that family, that home to go to. Who would want to leave that? It isn't a choice. It's a matter of you come to realize that the protests, like show me churches out there on the front lines with us. Show me them defending the communities that give them the dollars that they're using, because at the end of the day, the lights need to run, the toilets need to flush. Okay, you need the offering, it's needed, to make the bills go, but then show up for that community just as strong as we're showing up for you. Because I was in high school giving offering when I had no money. I would love to see a church step up and be like, you know what? No, we're going to be on the front lines showing peace and love, because that's what we need. Like, we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to fight to like live. We're trying to fight to be here and just be seen, and the impact it would make if there was a church alongside the movement, like helping to guide, because that's what churches are supposed to do. They're supposed to guide and lead in times of chaos. But I haven't seen a church step up and be that voice. I've only heard criticism on the movement. I haven't seen like any help.
I think not only aside from them feeling like youth are ignorant or like youth don't want to be involved, they look at youth almost like a dollar sign, because anytime I come in, it's like, oh, you're young. you can recruit like 5 more people, or you can like do you like there's a position for you. And not to say that you shouldn't contribute wherever you are, but my thing is it's not a person's job to off bat recruit people and they just come in there to get something for themselves. You don't know what place a person may be in for you to automatically put them in a position of having to recruit, or like just feeling like they need to like implement themselves into something. I feel like, I don't know, they feel like we are young and ready or something to just like get immersed into it. And my thing is, a lot of people, they got church trauma. So it's like, you can't just come at me like with all of this stuff. It's no telling what a person been dealt with, you know, prior to coming to church.
When I hear church trauma, is literally like just those individuals dealing with that trauma that they already endured in their everyday life, right? And then not understanding how to heal from that, not taking the necessary practices that it takes to restore that love, that perfect core health that we're born with, right? We pretty much just get that stripped from us, and we don't go through that process to heal from that. And we then, what happens then is like we take that trauma and we bring it into other spaces that we come to. So if we come into the church and when we come into this church because we want to heal, people are there for a purpose. You know, hopefully the intentions are pure, but if they're not getting the right help and guidance that they need to heal, then they would just continue to transfer the traumas onto other peoples.
When you ask the question, what do you think of as a Christian and what do you think of with God? The reason why people who grew up Christian, I feel like, can I answer that question comfortably, is because of church trauma. It's because of certain like attachments that have been like given to things, or like being told to pray about things that maybe need a little bit more attention in prayer. And I believe in prayer and meditation and all of that. And the Bible said to do both, but you got people in church who condemn meditation and people who want to see other practices. And I understand you should probably stick to one just to help your practice and focus. I believe that's why you should, but you don't condemn people for trying to learn. And that's a traumatic experience, especially for a young person. You don't condemn people for sexually questioning things. You don't ridicule them. You don't make it a public display of their business about what's going on. That's a very traumatic experience on top of sexual abuse that goes on within church. Now, me personally, I've never experienced that, but that's something that goes on that people just don't talk about, and it happens all the time.
Wow. Thank you for that. Your generation is certain that the history of slavery still impacts the United States. And while you are hopeful to see the church step up, many believe that the church does not have the best reputation for addressing injustice. How do you think the church has failed or succeeded in justice and race issues?
Most people in the church either don't involve themselves, like, Black Lives Matter. Most people don't want to get involved because they feel like it's not for them, or they just like don't see color and just don't want to acknowledge the problems that people of color and different people than them face.
I feel like in a lot of Hispanic churches, they don't really care about Black Lives Matter. They don't care about that movement. They don't. I know. So this happened to me one time, where I was at church. We were worshiping, and then this black man comes in, and as soon as he comes in, they just like, they look at him weird. They're like if he's an alien or something. And it's just like a lot of Latino and Hispanic churches, there's a lot of racism towards like the like Black people, and All Lives Matter. Like that movement just doesn't exist.
I think the best way to combat inequality and stuff like that is just to support our community, support the businesses owned by us and all that. And I'm not sure if the church really does any of that. And they also don't speak on the issues, because churches, they just want to get you there on Sunday. They want to make you feel good, and they want to send you home happy, so you keep on coming back. It doesn't seem like they want to address any real issues in their communities.
Historically, the issues surrounding justice in America have birthed leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Cesar Chavez, An Chang-ho, many of whom came from the church. Now, in your opinion, do you think that the church in America is still leading the change on justice issues? And if not, how can they improve? What can they improve on?
I mean, name a church leader now that's leading the movement. Like there isn't one, Most of the faces of the movement, they did maybe grow up in church, but they have decided to turn away. And I really do feel like we've all said it at this point, like it comes from the church needing to step up and not be scared, because there are real life injustices that the church is scared to address. And it's not fair. It's not fair that your young people are having to take this. Like, we hold the weight. Like, you should be guiding us. Like, we are raised knowing that the church is always going to be there to lead and always going to be there for us. But the second that we are like, hey, like, is this okay? Like, hey, what's going on? The church is like, wait, don't talk about that. Wait, we don't bring that here. Like, that's political. But the political things are what affect us. Like, that's literally our livelihood. And like, it's not okay anymore to hold your tongue. It's not okay anymore for it to be hush hush. Like, no, Black lives matter. Like, it isn't all lives matter. When you hear that in the church, you shouldn't wait for a person of color to call that out. You should call it out. When you hear your fellow people saying these things about like police brutality and all that stuff, it is a church matter. It isn't just political. Politics and church aren't separate. They are together. Like, you can't be Christian and say all lives matter. Like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And it's sad that like it's so hard to grasp, because there are so many churches. There's so many. And literally, if just a few stood up and stepped up, just like how we're taught to in being Christians, we're taught to be the few that step up. We're taught to take that brave step, but the churches aren't doing that for us.
We've already touched on a lot of these, but what are some other issues that are pressing to you personally or to others in your generation? And what are you personally doing to create change in the world around you?
I heard it multiple times when I was in church. Church and politics go separate and it's all really hush hush. But it's not like that. Like, the church really does need to step up, or young people are going to keep going away, because the fact of the matter is we have been consistently with every year growing more politically aware and wanting more freedoms and all of these things, and it's only going to keep going. And so by deciding to be passive in this struggle, you're deciding to mute voices, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, at the beginning of this panel, in the intro, we had said that this is the most educated generation to come, and you guys are demonstrating that. So I'm really impressed by all of your knowledge and the way that you're processing these things. Any other pressing issues, things that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about, or any other ways in which you can articulate the way that you're creating change in the world around you?
Yeah, so basically what we're doing is we're trying to reach millions and millions of kids through like social media and through TikTok and through all of this, and trying to find future leaders to lead future generations, and just show them the way of God, and show them how to dedicate your life to God, or how to go to God when no one else is like helping you out, you know?
Well, I think on that note of hope, maybe I'll go to this question. What is your hope for the future of your generation?
I believe that we will go from I can't breathe to we will breathe. I believe we will begin to break generational curses and build generational wealth. I believe we will go from a place of fear to a place of freedom. And that is because I have the mentality of being victorious and not victimhood.
So my hope for the future really is that we have a future, because right now I feel like almost like the wisdom and the knowledge is being lost. And it's because families, the way families are starting to look, they're changing. We got people having kids younger, people leaving church, just not coming. And it's like a lot of the wisdom and a lot of the people that I'm around, a lot of that wisdom comes from a spiritual back, and not necessarily church, but some spiritual teaching is where the wisdom comes from. And to me, it's scary because it's almost going to become lawless, if that makes sense. I don't even really know a better way to like articulate that. But my hope for the future is that people continue to like preserve the wisdom and knowledge and share it, even if it's not in a church setting. Like, maybe church looks different. That's what I'm hoping, I guess.
I hope for the future, for like my generation, that we learn, especially from the people right now that are speaking up about like Black Lives Matter and everything, that we start to speak up more, especially in the future, and especially in the church, that we start to speak up
when we're older to like the younger people and like tell them everything that happened, especially now, that they should have a voice too and that they should start to speak up.
What would be a picture of a church community that you would love to see?
Well, what I'd like to see a church do is be accepting to whatever race you are, to whatever you identify as, to think of you as family other than a church member. Like now, I'd hope to see a church push Black Lives Matter and be okay with losing a donor or two. And yeah,
I feel like we're all kind of hoping that that the churches value us more than their money a little bit, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, like just trying to like make sure that like, because at the end of the day, like we're gonna be the ones that like are part of the church. We are the hands and the feet. Like I want to see a church that's not in the walls on Sunday. Like I want to see a church in the park, like giving out food while they're worshiping. Like you know, like I think that the church really needs to, because all of us have said we don't want to leave church. All of us. No one wanted to leave. But the church needs to figure out ways to accommodate us. The church needs to figure out ways to keep us, because at the end of the day, like we are the church and we do have the power to go if we want to go.
Thank you all so much. I mean, I said it in between and all throughout, but you all have so much wisdom. We value your voice so much. We love you. There's so many different ways to do it. We love you. We value you. You are essential and you give me hope. You are bright and you are processing all of this. And I know that you want to do something that inspires hope in other people. So thank you for being on this panel. Wow. I don't know about you, but I thought that was amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today. And stay tuned for part 2 of this conversation where UYWI's youth workers respond to the youth's concerns and discuss solutions. Lastly, if you liked what you heard, come be a part of our tribe. We are creating new leaders for a new world. And those of you who want to give and be a part of changing the world, partner with us and donate where you can by heading over to UYWI.org. Thank you.